This is the Bible of the electrogenic cell. It's not just the best book ever written on the subject, it's the only book ever written on this subject. Brought to you by supporters of Christ.
Come on, it's too late. They didn't already seen you with your goofball hat on.
Chill.
It's all right. They know you into some type of.
Bro, all right. Nah. You want to list here?
No, Philip Kaikai. Kaikai needs her. No, but they know you into some type of fake chef, whatever you got going on with them reality shows. You know? Yeah. They know you be watching. What's that chef name that be cussing folks out? Yeah. All right, so guess what? Guess what, family? See, we ain't got nobody. Yeah, let some family get up in here. Let the family get up in here. Bring your butts in here. Yeah, hit the like button. Let's see how this thing goes. Oh, yeah. Make sure y'all hit the like button. We back to work. But I can say, ooh. Ooh. Ah. Yo, I can't hold you. This is the most fun book. Yo. This book right here is trouble. This is trouble. I gotta raise the price on these books, though. I do have to raise the price on these books. So the price of these books will be going up shortly. What? Yeah, Chase got the hot water. Okay. Tell him to put you together. And go get you one of them. You heard, Kai? And don't burn yourself. Don't burn my daughter, Chase, with that hot water. All right, but today, obviously, we back to work. Listen, check this out, though. This is what's crazy. Last night, not even last night, this morning, right? I realized that I hadn't slept. Not good anyway. I hadn't slept in weeks, right? Because I've been on the grind. You know, I've been typing and doing what doing what y'all have empowered me to do, right? But I didn't know that, like we have the conversation about circadian rhythm and health and blah, 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 blah. My laptop got a circadian rhythm. My laptop was having like early stages of dementia setting in. My laptop was having dementia setting in. Yeah. So my share screen wasn't working because now, mind you, a handful of people saw me figure out like a little workaround where I could jump from Google to Safari back and forth and do some sharing. But that would have got us through for class, but that wouldn't have necessarily been fluid. Anyway, my computer shuts off, and when it comes back on, I did a reset. When it comes back on, Google had to update whatever. It's, they did an AI update for Google, platforms or whatever. So if you got a computer, you probably did yours, a month, 2 months ago. I haven't powered my laptop off in probably 4, 5, 6 weeks. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, I'm excited. My share screen is back. My share screen is back. You know what I'm saying? I'm like Doctor Strange without his little magic thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, I got to have my little thing in my cape. You know what I'm saying? Like, I got to have my little magic tools. Yeah. He in the building. Blonsky said you called me for customer support. Oh, call me right now, Blonsky. Blonsky, call me right now. Let me go get one of these phones. You, come here for a second. Go get my phone. Both of them. All right, Blonsky, hit me up right now. Since you live in the chat. Oh, is that Blonsky right now hitting me up? All right, Blonsky. Is that you from the 908? All right, there we go. All right, so we locked in. There we go. All right. So now that y'all done heard my sad stories, or my happy story anyway, my happy story, right? Now that I got to vent a little bit, connect with Blonsky. Blonsky been out here in these streets looking for me. You don't know, I've been actually looking for you, right? Sometimes they go to voicemail. Sometimes I don't know where they at. Sometimes one of the children got it doing their homework on it, or something they ain't supposed to be doing on it. You know what I'm saying? Like it's whatever. But I got you now. You know what I'm saying? So post live stream, we'll figure out whatever need to figure out. But yeah, sometimes it definitely goes to voicemail. So shout out to the family that we got in here. Shout out to the family. YouTube is playing games with us. Bro, listen. I have been causing so much trouble with this book right here. Oh my God. This book right here. I've been causing so much trouble with this book Darwin's fallacies. If y'all don't know what we're talking about these evolution books. And we definitely have a whole course. You know, we did a orientation and even had to do an open house just so we could talk a little crazy and have a good time with it. But it's a very important conversation. So along with the insults, the jokes, you know, the fun, the laughs, the screams, the crash outs, I don't want people to, at least not from my end, lose sight of what's important and why we're doing it. You know, for the other side of the debate, what they've been looking for is to somehow invalidate me somehow, or whatever the case may be. So that's what they get out of it. For me, it's always the same. You know, education and building with the people. So for me, it wouldn't make sense without classes and a book, you know what I'm saying, where we can actually study the material and all learn the material going forward. Because we need to know it for health purposes. We need to know it for finance purposes. We need to know it for, you know, institutional, you know, what we got going on with our children. You know, I got two potential doctors on the way. You know what I'm saying? I got two little ones that want to go to medical school. So, and we live in one of those times. You know, we live in one of those times where it means something. You know, no disrespect to the people who, you know, but every time period was not that meaningful. You know what I'm saying? We know that when we look back at history, there's certain time periods where it's crazy. You know, like from 1865 to like, it started right there. This history has not turned down for a second. Since 1865, it's been crazy. Yeah, from 1865, history has been like, for better or for worse, but we are going through a time. You know what I'm saying? So on the other side of this, you know, our children or our children's children, they have to be prepared for whatever that is, you know, whatever that is. Nanobot technology in the food in their body, beneficially, forcefully, you know, whatever the case may be, whatever herbology evolves into or changes into, what medicine looks like, surgery looks like, what schooling looks like, what businesses look like. You know, they just have to be prepared. And to hell with them damn children. Right? Because I don't plan on laying down no time soon. I'm just saying, we got to take care of us, right? We got to take care of us too. Right. So yeah, we gotta do it for the babies, but you know, and our babies, but at the same time, unless we're planning on clocking out in the next 24 to 48 hours, right? We still gotta make sure we, you know, for the foreseeable future, we're here at the, you know, running our best races. Yeah. They got to get reinforcements. That's the one thing everybody got to keep in mind. It's just me, like, it's just me against, you know what I'm saying? Like Tupac said, just me against the world. You know what I'm saying? So as more recruits come out, that's how you know, like, and the funny thing is, as you watch these conversations, when you get this book, you're going to be able to go through this book and be like, wait a minute. Hold on page. Wait, so he really was that. This is all right out of the this is textbook. Okay, so yeah, he was on page 4 right there when he said this, and this is how this went down. And then he was on this page with that. Like you're gonna be able to go through and see the whole. like yo, it's crazy. You know, but the whole idea is, again, we have to know how we have to study our bodies, you know, and it makes all of the difference. So I'm open to being debunked. Honestly. I'm not like, you know what I'm saying? I'm open to being debunked, but I just the universe is just so I don't know. I might be a little romantic about it. I might be a little romantic about it. You know what I'm saying? Because my dad like instilled math, you know, and then 161, 161st Street, like that was my neighborhood. Later on, I learned that was the number 5, the golden number, 1.61. So that always was like in my mind. You know what I'm saying? Like, yo. Now somebody else would be like, yo, that has nothing to do with. Come on, Inky. So a lot of people live in this same neighborhood. Almost none of them are concerned with. But so what? That's why I'm here. You know what I'm saying? And then even the crazy thing is in the Bronx, right? In the Bronx, I'm on 161, but from Harlem, I'm on 116. So we from 116th Street in Harlem, but 161st Street in the Bronx. I'm like, see, that makes it a little bit more different. Yeah, that makes it a little bit more different. 116th Street in Harlem, 161st Street in the Bronx. You know what I'm saying? Like, so it's just different. And then there's a lot of things that we would have to figure out. Right? There's a lot of things we would have to figure out. Like, and it's perfectly fine for us to have this conversation in week 2, day 1 of protein, because protein is at the center of, you know, the evolution conversation. Protein is at the center of the evolution conversation. Period. Because that's what the whole conversation's about. Where is the information, or how is it that we have these complex protein structures? What's creating them? Is it just blind nature, wind blowing and rain and lightning? Or is there some intelligence to the design? So it's very much a part of holistic health. It's very much a part of comedic science, you know, having that understanding. Because without that, nothing else makes sense. At least not from a holistic point of view. Like you can't have a body. The body is electric. right? You can't have a body is electric stance and then also a Darwin stance. Because if the body was electric, but the electricity was not within a very, 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 very complex system of codes and you know, like, we would just be dead. Like plugging your hands into the outlet, we'd be done. You know what I'm saying? Like, so it is a very complex system and a very unique type of electricity. And it functions in very, 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 very zillion infinity varies, right? A very complex fashion, which is based on codes, right? So we have specific numbers that are very interesting. Math, right? And that's the thing about math. Math is the most math is the most scientific of all sciences. At the same time, check this out. Math is the most mystical and religious of all sciences. Math is the problem. That's a bar right there. Ooh, I gotta write that down. That's a bar right there. I like that. Math is the problem. Wait a minute, that's a bar. I'm going crazy. That's math is the problem. Water is the solution. Come on, that's crazy right there. I gotta write that down. That's going in a book. Math is the problem. What is the solution? Yeah, that's fire right there. I like that. Yeah, that's going to be in book 4. Book 4 is still getting touched up. That's why book 4 is not out yet. Book 4 is still getting touched up. Listen, math is the problem. Water is the solution. But no. Just outside of that, math really is the problem because you have these numbers, right? It's time. Woo! You got a couple numbers. Right? And it starts with the trigonometry book. Listen, it starts with the trigonometry book. Where's my trigonometry book? Oh, no, blood clot this. Where's my trigonometry book? Come on. Where's my trigonometry book at? Oh, here you go. Right? It starts with the trigonometry. See, this book right here is going to grow legs. This is going to get crazy because we're going to have to revisit this Joker. Yeah, we're gonna have to go back to this trigonometry book. Because in this book, yeah, we're gonna have to go back to this book. We're gonna have to go back to this trigonometry book. Because in the trigonometry book, we spend a lot of time doing what? The kinetic math, right? I think it's written something like this. I could look it up. I think that's how it's written. Let me see. Ouch. Let me look this up. All right. Okay, yeah. I was correct. So this right here is how you write up the doubling, right? That's the doubling, right? Doubling and halving, kind of, right? Which we know is the basis of how Kemet ran their whole math program. Then you have, right? So this is an important number, right? But these numbers represent numbers, right? Numbers or measurements, right? So then you have this number, right? Then you have this number, right? And then you have, how is this number written? I think it's just an E, right? Yeah, I think those are the main numbers. I think these are the main numbers, right? These numbers right here, this is a problem right here. This is a problem right here. I don't think Darwin was familiar with any of this. I don't think Darwin was familiar with this. And I know that his followers in 2025 are not sharp enough to be familiar with any of this. Period. Because, again, math is the one science that was not invented by man's agency. Math was not invented by the agency of man, right? We created the study of this and that and geology and all kinds of ologies and all of the ologies we made up to try to figure out some stuff. We had questions. We created a system designed to give us answers. And then double check those answers, right? That's based on like fractal symmetry. So there's that. Maybe I should put that because that is kind of like, yeah. That's kind of a thing as well, right? We can put fractal symmetry down here. Right? And just put geometry. or should I put masonry down there? Right. But yeah, fractal symmetry is a thing, right? Self-referral, self-referencing, self-creating, self-developing. That's an important part of this conversation. But these numbers are numbers that in a blind universe should not exist, right? And when I say they shouldn't exist, I mean, I'll give you a few examples. I'm going to go right into the book. I'm going to go into the book, give you some examples out of the book. So, and I didn't even put the square roots. Yeah, because that's a whole nother thing. Yeah, it's too many numbers. It's too many numbers because I didn't even put square roots up here. There's certain square roots, right? There's certain square roots. You know what? Why not? Why not? Since I could share now, why not share? Yeah, why not just share? Yeah, let's go through some of this new book. Yeah, let's look at some of this. What was that? All right. Okay, yeah, because this is not, it's not out yet. Ooh, look how nice and smooth that was to share. Look at that. And we've talked about this in a couple of the books before. We've talked about this in a couple of the books before, but I just thought it was relevant to the conversation. And no. The thing is, okay, before I get lost, because I know I'm scatterbrained right now, because I got 100 things going on. The reason why math is a problem for the conversation of evolution versus intelligent design is that math is like the signature of intelligence. Math is a signature of intelligence. Period. Math is a signature of intelligence, right? And so math shows up. Math shows up. Math shows up. Measure shows up. Ratios show up. And they shouldn't in a completely random, chaotic universe. There should be no math. Not exacts and not repetitive, consistent mathematical patterns like that. That shouldn't exist. So let me show you. And then obviously, this is out of book number 4. So this book is not out yet. So you could definitely get the book. This is like a little sample of what's in the book. It's kind of crazy, right? But these are transcendental numbers, right? So if you never heard of transcendental numbers, right? They're a type of irrational number, right? And so even with the remember we were having a conversation and I was saying that there's a conflict. I think it's when we was having the conversation about theoretical science versus the physical sciences, right? And we was having that whole science, things have to be reproducible. The problem is life is not reproducible. Life deals with irrational numbers, right? Life is based on irrational numbers. Everyone has a unique fingerprint, right? Your fingerprint's not reproducible, right? So irrational numbers, but patterns based on irrational numbers are reproducible. So irrational numbers themselves are not reproducible, but patterns based off them are, right? Now I remember the conversation. But anyway, transcendental numbers are a specific type. And so when you look in biology, these numbers govern how biology works, how biology develops, right? Now that's pi, right? So, a lot of people overlook the 22 and 7 thing. For me, that's more than coincidence. 22 letters, 7 days of creation, that number pi, I'm like, I don't know. That's a very significant thing there. That's a significant thing there, right? Seeing as a lot of our biology and biochemistry, right, is based on that number, right? So remember, you don't see with your eyes or hear with your ears. You see and you hear with your mind, right? Now here's another number. This is Euler's constant, I believe. Euler's constant. I think I'm saying that the right way. These things are constantly regulated, created, regenerated in these patterns over and over and over, right? And then here's our good old-fashioned comedic reference, right? Our good old-fashioned comedic reference, right? And we have a whole host of math, right? A whole host of math that tells us a story of intelligence, complexity, right? The blueprint, right? The blueprint, right? The master architect laying out the blueprint. And then the blueprint is magic. You just throw the blueprint and the blueprint just starts to build itself. It's crazy, right? But that's why we have these books, right? There's always something, right? American Healer Volume 1 and 2. The blueprint that builds itself, right? But what does it build itself out of? Protein. In very exact numbers. in very exact numbers. So that's what I wanted to take a look at today a little bit more of. Since I got my share screen back. Since I got my share screen. Yeah. Since I got my share screen nice and fluid again. Feeling myself out here in these streets. Right? We want to have a little conversation. I want to introduce this guy to the family. Look at that right there. What's crazy is I couldn't build one of those things if you gave me tools to do it with. But my cells, somehow my body is building millions and millions and millions of these things all the time. Like, that's crazy. That is crazy. That is crazy. And this is not just like art. You know what I'm saying? This thing works. This thing works. This is a whole motor. This is a whole motor. And the crazy thing is, think about your car. Think about the most expensive car in the world. Electric or gas. It still has to, you still got to pull over to fuel up. This joint right here, you ain't got to fuel up. It's crazy. It just keep going. This is crazy. People have probably been killed for less. There's plenty of people that tried to build alternative engines that just kind of tragically, allegedly, right? Remarkably, bacteria steer their swimming direction by reversing the rotation of their flagella motors. Salmonella, E. coli have about 10 flagella scattered around the surface of their cell. When the motor turns counterclockwise, all of the flagella bundle together and power the cell forward in one direction. However, if the cell decides that it's not going in the right direction, it switches the motor to the clockwise direction. This causes all the flagella to separate and the cell tumbles randomly in place. Then it switches the motor back to the counterclockwise direction. The flagella bundle up again and the cell swims in a new, better direction. Flagella motors have many moving parts that have been studied separately using X-ray crystallography and cryo-electron microscopy. This image shows the clockwise form of the motor combined in several PDB entries. At the top, the hook connects the motor to the long flagellum. The LP ring surrounds the central axle and reduces friction on the outer membrane. And the peptoglycan, power is generated by 11 rotary motors termed stators. They are themselves individual rotary motors driven by the flow of hydrogen ions, that's protons, driven by the flow of hydrogen ions across the inner membrane. These small motors together turn the large C-ring, which turns the central axle and the flagellum. Okay, so let's look at this thing here. What are we talking about? Okay, so these are the motors. These guys right here, these are the individual motors powered by protons. and these things spin around, and then this whole thing moves and spins around. Actually, we probably need a
Rise up, get healthy, let the truth ignite. Dr. Inky always bringing dark to light. See my senior system.
Anyone with brains knows that.
Some bacteria contain flagellum, which are long filaments that protrude from bacteria, seen here using electron microscopy. These filaments are attached to large protein complexes called bacteria flagellum motors that can rotate and allow bacteria to swim towards or away from substances in a process named chemotaxis. Compared to the well-known membrane proteins, G-protein coupled receptors and ATP synthase, the bacteria flagellum motor is very large, measuring around 45 nanometers in diameter. The rotor...
Yo, that's crazy. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. Okay, let me help y'all out. Because I know some of y'all might get bored sometime. See, this is the exciting stuff. This is the part I enjoy. Now, going through big, huge textbooks to figure this stuff out, maybe not as much as like this, having a discussion or watching, seeing stuff in action, right? But here's the thing. And sometimes this is why we need to continue to read and study and learn, right? Because sometimes we don't know enough, like we haven't learned enough to be able to recognize something and realize how important that thing is for us. Now, let me ask y'all in the chat. Let's see if somebody in the chat got it, because y'all getting books, so y'all should, who knows? Let me see if somebody in the chat got it. Why is it important for us to learn about the flagellar motor? And don't be searching nothing. Don't Google, don't AI. Just type in. Let me see why it's important. Shout out to the bro. We definitely appreciate you for the super chat. No. Come on, who got the answer? Why is it important for us to learn about flagellar motors? No. See? This is why we got to keep studying. Listen, it's one of the biggest problems. People is making trillions of dollars off this every day. Listen, people is making trillions of dollars off this every day. So it's not only information. You know what I'm saying? One of y'all out there should be going somewhere to get rich with this information. Yeah, it's people getting rich off of this information. They're making trillions of dollars. Not necessarily in a positive fashion, right? They're kind of pimping, they pimping. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, somebody got to take this and go get. That's not my job. Once you get rich, you got to come give me a few. Hit me $20. Give me $20. You got to give me a few bucks. But that's not what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm supposed to be doing this. One of you at home is supposed to take this and then go to the moon, right? The reason what I'm talking about, the reason why this is important is because there is trillions of dollars generated on male fertility. Male fertility. This is the most important part of male fertility. What we're looking at, right? Mind you, this is protein. So this is very much protein conversation. This is protein. These are proteins, right? What we're looking at is they always use bacteria when they talk about flagellar motors. They use bacteria as the example because no matter how complex this looks, the most complex version of the flagellar motor is inside us. Yeah, that's how your semen get from you. We literally watch it every time we see the prayer. Every time we see the prayer, that's what we watching. Let's pull that up. Let's pull that up real quick. Let's pull that up real quick so we can see, because that's what that's the star of the show right there. That is the star of the show right there. Let's see. Hardworking, Mr. Dynamite. All right, let's see this here. Boom. Yeah. All this right here. All this right here. Look at this. Okay, hold on. This ain't the one. Yeah, look at that. Look at that. Perfect picture. You see that right there? Look. These ones right here in the front, these ones right here, they motor failed. Literally, they motor failed. So they're not going to make it. They ain't going nowhere. They motor failed. Right? That's literally what we're looking at. And usually the one that makes it is the one with the healthiest motor. Healthiest motor sounded crazy. Yeah, then we're going to roll with healthiest motor. Look at that. Look at that. That's what it looked like when you release millions and millions and millions of sperm into a woman. All of these sperm are dependent upon that motor. All of these sperm are dependent on that motor. And the motor in the sperm is way more complicated than the one we looking at. Just keep that in mind.
Bacteria, seen here using electron microscopy. These filaments are attached to large protein complexes called bacteria flagellar motors that can rotate and allow bacteria to swim towards or away from substances in a process named chemotaxis. Compared to the well-known membrane proteins, G-protein couple receptors and ATP synthase, the bacteria flagellar motor is very large, measuring around 45 nanometers in diameter. The rotor of this motor is comprised of multiple rings. The first to assemble is termed the fly-F ring, which acts as a scaffold. Onto this, the fly-G ring forms, which is responsible for switching the direction of the motor, causing either runs or tumbling. Finally, we have the fly-M and fly-N rings, which may regulate the switching of the motor by external stimuli. The rotor spans the inner and outer membrane of the bacteria. However, like all motors, torque generation cannot occur without a stator. Upon engagement of this stator, protons travel through the complex and generate rotation.
Talkies? Are
Really? We're not watching Takis. Any commercial besides Takis. any commercial besides Tackies. We're not watching Tackies, right? But I want you to like dig into this process. Yeah. They're making zillions of dollars. Zillions. Zillions. Oh, this one is a good one. Let me see this. Okay, yeah, let's rock with this.
Are hair-like appendages of cells that generate fluid flow along tissues or allow cells. Motilcilia and flagella are hair-like appendages of cells that generate fluid flow along tissues or allow cells to move through their environment. To better understand how these appendages generate motility, we flash froze sea urchin sperm cells while their flagella were actively beating, and then directly visualized the molecular machines inside the flagella through cryo-electron tomography. Thousands of motor proteins, called dyneins, are arranged regularly along the microtubule scaffold. Through classification, we identified several different functional states of the dyneins as they step along the microtubules. We demonstrate a detailed stepping mechanism. From the relaxed post-power stroke state, the dyneins release from the microtubule, swing forward, and rebind to the microtubule. During the power stroke, the cargo is pulled forward by the action of dynein. As long as ATP is present, dyneins continue to walk along the microtubule. However, if dyneins receive inhibitory signals, they can be kept in intermediate states that resemble the post-power stroke state, leaving them unable to generate motion. Our direct visualization of specific dynein conformations on either side of the flagella suggests a switch inhibition mechanism generates the flagellar beat. As one side is inhibited, the other side is active. In our model, regulatory signals result in inhibited dyneins on one side. This allows dyneins on the opposite side of the flagellum to walk along the microtubules. Molecular linkers resist this sliding, which causes the flagellum to bend in one direction. By periodically switching the side of dynein inhibition, the flagellum alternates the direction of bending, resulting in the typical whip-like motion. The propagation of dynein inhibition in different regions of the flagellar wave along the length of the flagellum leads to the characteristic beating motion. The dynein inhibition may occur in an all-or-none fashion, similar to an action potential, which could explain how cilia and flagella can switch their bending direction back and forth in less than 1/100th of a second and continue beating for days.
Wow, that was flawless. That was flawless. That was flawless. Yeah, that was flawless right there. I got to make sure I bookmark that. Yeah, because that was crazy. That was crazy. Yeah. Now think about that. Inside that one, and that's that. The flagellum for human sperm is way more complicated than the bacteria flagellum, right? But when you look at these things, it looks like a crazy blueprint. And that's how babies are made. But here's the thing with that. Jack, you funny. Here's the thing with that. If nature was blind, we wouldn't even be alive. You know what I'm saying? We would be extinct already. If Darwin was correct, there would be Darwin wouldn't exist. If Darwin was correct, Darwin would never have existed. We'd be extinct. Yo, it's bruh. Think about that. And think about the ability to make, because technology gets more difficult as we scale it down. You know what I'm saying? It's easier for us to make something large than it is, you know what I'm saying? Like, look at these blueprints. Look at this, look at these blueprints. Just look at some of these things when I put the search engine, when I search. This is just me searching on Google. Just so you can see what these things look like. Like this look like schematics. Like these are crazy. These look like some old crazy, actually. Let's click on something. These look crazy. These are crazy. These look like straight blueprints. Like something out of NASA or the military. Now, it's really only one thing. Now, in order to do this, in order to do that, in order to build that perfectly every single time, because life depends on that, you have to have a blueprint. You got to have a blueprint, man. You got to have a blueprint. All right, so where were we? All right, let's jump over to page 17. Let's jump over to page 17. Healing, repairing, and replacing cells. Here is a couple of samples of the daily turnover for a healthy person not injured, sick, or going through hypertrophy. Now, think about this, because we jumped right from that to this. Think about this. Plants are designed to have like stuff in them to tune you up. Think about that. Plants are designed where they have stuff in it that tunes you up. Now think about how crazy that is as you try to understand these robots is in you. Right? You got all these molecular machines in there, and then somehow it's something else. Now we walking around dumb, deaf, and blind. That's what humans are. We are dumb, deaf, and blind because we don't understand all of the complexity and the beauty that's around us, right? Think about it. We pee on trees. Oh yeah, we pee on trees. We violate the trees. Yeah, we pee on trees. We walk our dogs, you know, and we look for grass and stuff like that for our dogs to pee and poop on. You know what I'm saying? Like we just are trained by someone to violate nature. Just that's what we do. We just train that way, right? The wild plants that grows in our yard, we supposed to spray them down with poison or cut them out or pull them up by the roots. Yeah, any natural plant that grows in your yard is called a weed. You're supposed to kill that. Stop that from happening. Do not let natural plants grow around your property or you'll get a ticket. Just saying. It's wild out here when you think about it. Right? So it's crazy that those things that just grow wild, somehow they have stuff in there that somehow can tune up, tighten up, or fix stuff in here when it goes wrong. That's crazy. That is crazy. That is wild. Anyway, healing, repairing, replacing cells, tissues, glands, organs, bones, right? Tissues, glands, organs, bones are made of cells. Here is a couple of samples of the daily turnover for a healthy person, not injured, sick, or going through hypertrophy, right? So your red blood cells, right? Your red blood cells have a 120-day lifespan, right? Your red blood cells is on that 120. The red blood cells is on that 120. Just like the semen, the sperm is on that 64. Now, they're not going to all have dynamic, tricky numbers. You know what I'm saying? But the ones that do, you should be able to remember easy, right? So sperm, 64 days. Red blood cells, 120 days. What else we got? White blood cells. White blood cells are different because you got a bunch of different types, right? But typically, right? Yeah, every day. Every day. We just gonna put neutrophils to be more correct, right? 24 hours, right? Platelets. Ten days. Enterocytes. Nobody knows what an enterocyte is. But that's why you need to go get the Rich Abs book. If you don't know what an enterocyte is, then that means you slipping. Where's my little thingy?
This is why you have to go to Amazon and get the book, Rich Abs, Poor Abs, now. This is why you have to go to Amazon and get the book, Rich Abs, Poor Abs, now.
Enterocytes are throughout your digestive system or your gut, right? Those are the gut lining cells. And those are 3 to 5 days, right? Your skin cells. The skin cells is 40 days, right? 40 is one of them numbers, right? 40 is one of them numbers, right? And this is just an example, right? This is just an example, right? Because we continue in the book, but I wanted to put a couple on the board, right? We continue in the book through the brain, through the heart, through the lungs, through the liver, through the kidneys, through the pancreas, right? So you get a rough idea of just what it looks like You know what I'm saying? What it looks like for the turnover time, right? These are things that you should. We've been talking about them for the better part of a decade, maybe a little bit longer. Yeah, I think since I was in Philly, early 2000s. Yeah, even before we started the 40-day fruit fast and all that stuff. Because my most annoying question, right? My most annoying question of all time that I got quite frequently until people I guess I was too cranky, so people stopped asking, was how long do you think I should take these herbs for? You know what I'm saying? I used to be like, I don't understand that question. That's crazy. But it took me a while to get it, because I realized that most people believe that plants and herbs and stuff like that are like a new thing or like a trendy alternative thing, because it's phrased that way, like alternative medicine, alternative therapies, alternative, whatever. So I realized people are just ignorant. All right. People are just ignorant. And my biggest problem is that most people, especially in the Black and Spanish community, they don't do anything, right? They go on the internet and they argue about people who are into holistic ideas. If they're not, right? If they're pro, pharmaceutical, whatever, they go on the internet and argue against the natural folks. Then you have the other folks, right? They're pro natural everything, vegan, alkaline, whatever they came up with last week, right? And so they get on the internet and they argue against the vaccine and the pharmaceutical drugs. Meanwhile, they don't really do anything. They don't really do anything. This is the biggest problem, because the people who are, they have regular doctor's appointments, regular dental appointments, and, they do whatever they're supposed to do, take their little multivitamin, go see the doctor 5 times a year and all this. Those people are out of the way. The people who get their herbs, they study their body, they boop, 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 they eat, clean and that. They out of the way. Yeah, they on their bitters and who they out the way. It's all of the people that fit the majority, the people in the middle, the people that are doing nothing, the people that don't exercise, they don't do like anything for their health. They just like argue with folks that are doing things. They tell you how much they don't agree with this or that and blah, but they're not doing anything. That's my biggest pet peeve. Like, you got to get busy. You know what I'm saying? But I realized people were ignorant to the whole concept of, like where medicine even originated from. Medicine originated as plant extracts. And even further, the ignorance is about how the body works, right? What are you trying to do, right? If you get a symptom and you feel bad, like, what are you trying to do? You know what I'm saying? So there's a space where the medical industry will just say, hey, what you're doing, what you have, it can never be cured. So here's these drugs. So they've answered your question up front. Don't expect anything from us ever except more drugs. Those same people will come to the plant community and be expecting to get some herb that's going to, like make them into an X-Man in 72 hours. And if not, clearly, this doesn't work, blah, 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 blah. I'm not taking this. This was a scam, or it just, it goes bad. And, I used to have to ask people, I'd be like, well, how long have you had diabetes? Oh, I had diabetes for 5 years. I had diabetes for 10 years. I had diabetes for 20 years. I had diabetes for 30 years. Okay, well, Have you ever went to the hospital and told your doctor that he was a fraud or he was scamming because the insulin didn't cure your diabetes in 3 days? You've been getting medication for 20 years now. You haven't been cured yet. Did you go press the doctor? Hey doc, how long I gotta take this for, bro? How long I gotta, or how long I gotta keep getting this med? You never did that. It never dawns on us to do that because the respect that we've been inoculated with for that system, where on the flip side, we don't have that respect. So that's where early on I made my transition to not be an internet salesman and really just focus in on trying to get people the education, the information. Like you need to learn. So you don't even have those type of questions. You don't even have those type of questions. You know, like you have this option, you have this option. This option takes this long, this option takes this long. It's your body. You need to figure that out. Yeah, you need to figure that out, right? We need to get advice from other people. We need to consult other people, but you need to figure that out, right? So the most helpful thing, at least in my mind anyway, and it's, a lot of people have felt the same way, but the most helpful thing was to just get an idea what are you trying to do? Yeah, let's just start there. What are you trying to do? What is your goal? What are we working on? Right? How long does it take for your body to make those physical changes that are associated with your goal? Right? Regardless to what that goal is. Right? How long does it take if, let's say, all things were perfect, everything went perfect? How long does the physical body take to make and sustain the changes that you're looking for, even if it's to build some muscle? Right? How much muscle can you put on in a month without drugs? Like, how much muscle can you put on in a month? You know, how much fat can you lose in a healthy way? 8 pounds, maybe you can lose 8 pounds a month, without playing with water weight, right? Just real like fat. How much fat can you lose? Maybe 8 pounds a month. Right? How much muscle can you put on? Maybe a pound or so. Maybe. Right? So how much pound do we want to, what's the weight? What do you want to go? You 200 pounds right now and you want to be, 200 pounds, 35% body fat. 35% body fat. So that's 70. Yeah, you got 70 pounds of fat on there. Now, that 200 pounds, you got 70 pounds of fat that you want to lose. And you want to go from 200 pounds at 35% body fat to 185 pounds chiseled. Okay, so that means we have to get rid of 70 pounds of fat, which takes you to 140 pounds. But that 140 pounds is not all muscle. That 140 pounds includes bone. And the bone's definitely going to outweigh the muscle. So now we have to figure out how to bring back about 40 pounds of muscle. Guess what? Not even with steroids does that happen in 30 days. Not even with steroids does that happen in 30 days. Doesn't happen, right? And so it's the same type of thought process if you have some other goal, whether it's a symptom, you got a pain over here, you got some stones, you want to, whatever it is you got going on, right? You got low, you got stage 2 kidney disease or stage 1 kidney, whatever it is, high blood sugar, this, that. all of these things happens in stages, right? And not only do the metrics that you're looking for change in stages, but if you have something going on, chances are that has damaged a lot of stuff. It's damaged a lot of tissues. And now that we're getting an idea, because we're looking at these videos, and you can see inside one cell, you have hundreds of thousands of these little machines in there. So have some respect for your body now. Now that you know in one tiny cell, you got hundreds of thousands of machines, and you didn't watch all these crazy videos where guys it's like, yeah, we're gonna get you on this milk thistle, and that's gonna regenerate your liver. I'll be like, what? How you gonna regenerate somebody's whole liver with? Right? But milk thistle is good for the liver. It's just not gonna you're not gonna get a brand new all them that alcohol and Chinese, all that whatever you did to get to that liver damage. You're not gonna milk thistle that out. That's not gonna milk thistle out overnight. Not gonna happen. That's gonna take time. You gotta work on that. And that could be a useful tool. Put that in your back pocket. Milk thistle. Okay, cool. But milk thistle alone is not gonna do it. Because milk thistle by itself is not going to rebuild all those machines, right? And then even still, with the liver being the liver, and the liver is called the liver because it self-regenerates. Unlike the rest of the tissues, the liver can like regenerate itself all the way from scratch. The liver's got a sharp memory. I think your liver and your tongue. I might have to look that up. But I think your tongue also can build itself back. Like if it got cut off. Yeah, I think if you cut your tongue off, it'll grow back. That sounds crazy. I think I gotta look that up. I know the liver does that. I know the liver does that for a fact. Okay. The tongue's ability to grow back depends on the extent and cause of the damage. Cuts and burns typically heal on their own. Major injuries. If a large portion of the tongue is removed, it cannot grow back naturally. Wow. Okay, it's a wrap. Okay, so I was incorrect with the tongue. Yeah. I knew I was I was skating. Okay. No. The thing is, they have. I'll be watching and reading too much, so sometimes it get blurry. It can get information. My circuits can get crossed. But no, what they're doing now is they're taking skin from other areas of your body, and they can regrow your whole tongue like that. Yeah, so it can regrow, but not by itself if you cut it off. A doctor has to surgically cut off something from somewhere else and then put it there, and then those cells will differentiate into the tongue blueprint. Think about that too. That's crazy on its own, right? Tissue from somewhere else with a whole other type of identity. They'll attach it to the tongue, and then the tissue from wherever it is, it'll get rid of that identity, and then all those cells will transition from skin cells, thigh cells, or wherever they are into tongue cells. And then after a while, they'll never, you know what I'm saying? It'll be like, you know what I'm saying? It'll be like they never were, it was never cut off, or those weren't cells from, you know, your butt cheeks, or, you know, wherever they get the tissue from. Crazy. That's why sometimes it just said this stuff is like magic. It's like magic, right? So we got a white paper. I think that needs its own whole class or 3. Yeah, we might spend a week on that or more. Yeah, because I was trolling. Okay. All right. Might as well. All right, so we're going to get into this. The importance of amino acids in the practice of electrogenic and aquagenic healing via inspiration. Right? So it starts on page 22. It's a draft. Right? The abstract. A Harvard longitudinal cohort study tracking over 1,100 male firefighters revealed a striking truth. The capacity to perform more than 40 push-ups in 60 seconds correlated with a 96% reduction in cardiovascular disease risk over the following decade. This single metric, simple, equipment-free, and universally applicable, emerges not merely as a predictor of cardiac health, but as a proxy for total body regenerative capacity. It reflects the integration of muscle endurance, mitochondria density, vascular elasticity, neuromuscular coordination, and biochemical availability of amino acids to sustain repeated high-intensity contractions. Now, that may sound a little, you fancy, huh? You fancy, huh? Nails on, everything. No, I'm just kidding. But it may sound a little, but it's even more complicated than it sounds. You know what I was going to say? It's not as complicated as that. No, it's more complicated than it sounds, because for every one of those terms, we know now there's a jillion little tiny robots working. There's a zillion little robots working, right? So every exercise, we got to think that way. Every exercise.
You know that feeling. Your muscles ache from yesterday, you're feeling weak and puny as you start your next workout, and all your workout friends remind you to keep up with your daily protein. You know that feeling. Your muscles ache from yesterday, you're feeling weak and puny as you start your next workout, and all your workout friends remind you to keep. You know that feeling. Your muscles ache from yesterday, you're feeling weak and puny as you start your next workout, and all your workout friends remind you to keep up with your daily protein intake. But have you wondered what's going on inside your muscles? How the protein that you eat helps you stay in shape, especially after you get hit with delayed onset muscle soreness, also known as DOMS. Shown here in blue are actin chains that are being gripped by myosin motors that are shown in purple. The braided rope is made of long purple tails from each motor. So, your muscles work like a nanoscopic bungee run. Your springy chain of titan, which is shown here in orange, guides the team of myosin motors as they blindly pull their way down the surface of your actin chains, nanometer by nanometer by nanometer. Eventually, the force of whatever weights you're lifting balances the force that your myosins can exert. At that point, the bungee run comes to a stalemate. And like the moment everyone who has ever done a bungee run remembers so well, your myosin motors get yanked back as you consciously allow your muscles to relax and your nerves tell your motors to give up their fight. Now, if you keep your muscles maximally tensed for too long or for too many reps, your myosin motors can actually get yanked completely out of register. This process is called sarcomere popping, and it makes your muscles sore and unable to lift as much, which are the classic symptoms of DOMS. Your body most likely fixes this problem by using an actin-cutting protein called gelsolin, which is shown here wrapping around the actin chains that are popped out of place. New actin building blocks get synthesized by your body's protein factory, which is called the ribosome. Your ribosomes read genetic recipes written in your messenger RNAs, which are shown here as a cream-colored strand. Once your actin building blocks are in place, which can take a few days, your muscles are back on track for more lifts, curls, squats, presses, and anything else you want to do. Your symptoms are gone and your muscles are that much stronger and resistant to future bouts of DOMS. But how does ingesting protein help with this process? Obviously, if you had a shortage of amino acids, your ribosomes would not be able to make new proteins. But most of us never even get close to that level of amino acid shortage. So, to understand how creating a surplus of amino acids work to build muscles faster, we have to turn to a 135-year-old theory called Le Chatelier's principle. Not that Le Chatelier's explains everything, but it's the chemical principle behind how your body exploits building more muscle from plentiful amino acids. All it says is that when you have a chemical reaction, adding more of the starting reactants causes more of the final products to be formed. In this case, adding more amino acid reactants causes more protein products to form. It's that simple. And your body exploits that simple truth to trigger all kinds of amazing, wonderful, and yet to be discovered molecular interactions that amplify and control Le Chatelier's principle. The bottom line is that no one knows all of what happens inside the black box of your molecular machinery when you consume more protein, but carefully controlled studies of people ingesting varying amounts of protein have shown that Le Chatelier's principle works. The more protein you put in your body, you know that feeling. Your muscles ache from yesterday, you're feeling weak and puny as you start your next workout, and all your workout friends remind you to keep up with your daily protein intake. But have you wondered what's going on inside your muscles? How the protein that you eat helps you stay in shape, especially after you get hit with delayed onset muscle soreness, also known as DOMS. Shown here in blue are actin chains that are being gripped by myosin motors that are shown in purple. The braided rope is made of long purple tails from each motor. So, your muscles work like a nanoscopic bungee run. Your springy chain of Titan, which is shown here in orange, guides the team of myosin motors as they blindly pull their way down the surface of your actin chains, nanometer by nanometer by nanometer. Eventually, the force of whatever weights you're lifting balances the force that your myosins can exert. At that point, the bungee run comes to a stalemate. And like the moment everyone who has ever done a bungee run remembers so well, your myosin motors get yanked back as you consciously allow your muscles to relax and your nerves tell your motors to give up their fight. Now, if you keep your muscles maximally tensed for too long or for too many reps, your myosin motors can actually get yanked completely out of register. This process is called sarcomere popping, and it makes your muscles sore and unable to lift as much, which are the classic symptoms of DOMS. Your body most likely fixes this problem by using an actin-cutting protein called gelsolin, which is shown here wrapping around the actin chains that are popped out of place. New actin building blocks get synthesized by your body's protein factory, which is called the ribosome. Your ribosomes read genetic recipes written in your messenger RNAs, which are shown here as a cream-colored strand. Once your actin building blocks are in place, which can take a few days, your muscles are back on track for more lifts, curls, squats, presses, and anything else you want to do. Your symptoms are gone and your muscles are that much stronger and resistant to future bouts of DOMS. But how does ingesting protein help with this process? Obviously, if you had a shortage of amino acids, your ribosomes would not be able to make new proteins. But most of us never even get close to that level of amino acid shortage. So, to understand how creating a surplus of amino acids work to build muscles faster, we have to turn to a 135-year-old theory called Le Chatelier's principle. Not that Le Chatelier's explains everything, but it's the chemical principle behind how your body exploits building more muscle from plentiful amino acids. All it says is that when you have a chemical reaction, adding more of the starting reactants causes more of the final products to be formed. In this case, adding more amino acid reactants causes more protein products to form. It's that simple. And your body exploits that simple truth to trigger all kinds of amazing, wonderful, and yet to be discovered molecular interactions that amplify and control Le Chatelier's principle. The bottom line, you know that feeling. Your muscles ache from yesterday, you're feeling weak and puny as you start your next workout, and all your workout friends remind you to keep up with your daily protein intake. But have you wondered what's going on inside your muscles? How the protein that you eat helps you stay in shape, especially after you get hit with delayed onset muscle soreness, also known as DOMS. Shown here in blue are actin chains that are being gripped by myosin motors that are shown in purple. The braided rope is made of long purple tails from each motor. So, your muscles work like a nanoscopic bungee run. Your springy chain of Titan, which is shown here in orange, guides the team of myosin motors as they blindly pull their way down the surface of your actin chains, nanometer by nanometer by nanometer. Eventually, the force of whatever weights you're lifting balances the force that your myosins can exert. At that point, the bungee run comes to a stalemate. And like the moment everyone who has ever done a bungee run remembers so well, your myosin motors get yanked back as you consciously allow your muscles to relax and your nerves tell your motors to give up their fight. Now, if you keep your muscles maximally tensed for too long or for too many reps, your myosin motors can actually get yanked completely out of register. This process is called sarcomere popping, and it makes your muscles sore and unable to lift as much, which are the classic symptoms of DOMS. Your body most likely fixes this problem by using an actin-cutting protein called gelsolin, which is shown here wrapping around the actin chains that are popped out of place. New actin building blocks get synthesized by your body's protein factory, which is called the ribosome. Your ribosomes read genetic recipes written in your messenger RNAs, which are shown here as a cream-colored strand. Once your actin building blocks are in place, which can take a few days, your muscles are back on track for more lifts, curls, squats, presses, and anything else you want to do. Your symptoms
Yeah. Listen, but here's the thing you got to think of, right? I know I let that play a few times, but here's the thing you got to think of with that, right? Here's the thing you got to think of with that. Okay, that's going to be dangerous. The thing to think of with that is we can use skeletal muscle, right? We can use skeletal muscle. It's not an exact translation, right? But we can use skeletal muscle as a blueprint for what we have to do with our organs, right? Our glands, right? Your organs or glands are also muscle tissue. Different types of muscle tissue, but muscle tissue nonetheless, right? And so one of the reasons why it's important to get out, you know, we do our prayers. What time is it? Yeah, because I don't want Tika pulling up on me. We didn't spam the chat. But the reason why we have the prayers, and honestly, some days is a 3-prayer day for me. Some days is 3. You know what I'm saying? It might even be 2. But some days it might be 7. You know what I'm saying? Some days it might be 7. You know what I'm saying? So I try to stick to the 5, you know what I'm saying? But, you know, and get my steps, you know, 5,000, 10,000 steps a day, right? But real life is happening. So you have to just be, you know, but the idea is movement, right? So, and this is where some of the abstract concepts come into play, right? Some of the abstract concepts come into play here. When you talk about the fascia being on this side, right? You got the fascia, then you have your lymphatic system. Most times, most discussions, they're not going to be discussed together, right? Most discussions, you're rarely going to find a discussion on the face. First of all, the internet is permeated with chakras and foolishness whenever you look up the fascia, right? So if you look up fascia or fascia, right? However you want to, you know, tomato it. But when you look up that connective tissue, typically it's associated with a bunch of ridiculousness, right? People in the fitness world don't address it. People in the medical universe, they don't address it. So most of the people on the internet that do address the connective tissue, it's going to be, you know, it's going to be a little weird, you know, it's going to get a little spooky, right? They're going to hit you with a little chakra, a little kundalini. They're going to hit you with, you know, and, you know, It does such a disservice, with the foolishness, right? But the fascia is piezoelectric, right? That is very important to understand in the context of the lymphatic system, right? Because the lymphatic system is a system of tubes, right? But if we don't have context, I wonder where this big book is at. Let me see if I can find this book. Give me a second. Let me see if I can find this book. Here, y'all look at this some more. Let me see if I can find this book.
You know that feeling. Your muscles ache from yesterday, you're feeling weak and puny as you start your next workout, and all your workout friends remind you to keep up with your daily protein intake. But have you wondered what's going on inside your muscles? How the protein that you eat helps you stay in shape, especially after you get hit with delayed onset muscle soreness, also known as DOMS. Shown here in blue are actin chains that are being gripped by myosin motors that are shown in purple. The braided rope is made of long purple tails from each motor. So, your muscles work like a nanoscopic bungee run. Your springy chain of Titan, which is shown here in orange, guides the team of myosin motors as they blindly pull their way down the surface of your actin chains, nanometer by nanometer by nanometer. Eventually, the force of whatever weights you're lifting balances the force that your myosins can exert. At that point, the bungee run comes to a stalemate. And like the moment everyone who has ever done a bungee run remembers so well, your myosin motors get yanked back as you consciously allow your muscles to relax and your nerves tell your motors to give up their fight. Now, if you keep your muscles maximally tensed for too long or for too many reps, your myosin motors can actually get yanked completely out of register. This process is called sarcomere popping, and it makes your muscles sore and unable to lift as much, which are the classic symptoms of DOMS. Your body most likely fixes this problem by using an actin-cutting protein called gelsolin, which is shown here wrapping around the actin chains that are popped out of place. New actin building blocks get synthesized by your body's protein factory, which is called the ribosome. Your ribosomes read genetic recipes written in your messenger RNAs, which are shown here as a cream-colored strand. Once your actin building blocks are in place, which can take a few days, your muscles are back on track for more lifts, curls, squats, presses, and anything else you want to do. Your symptoms are gone and your muscles are that much stronger and resistant to future bouts of
Here we go. I had to dig in the stash. I had to dig in the stash to find this. Inky, this book belonged to a doctor that passed away. I got this book as a gift. And so I never took off the card. Inky, this book belonged to a doctor that passed away. All bookmarkers are his markings. This is an interesting book that you could probably get more use from than me. And it really is an epic book. It's an epic book. It's the Atlas of the Human Body. It was put out, and the crazy thing is, this book is the same age as me. That's crazy. This book is the same age as me. This book was released in 1977. 1977. And I'll be honest, I had a bunch of stuff like this. This is a book with a lot of pictures and anatomy in it. And I have a bunch of stuff like with this type of stuff in it, but scattered all over the place. Not like one book with all of this stuff in it. Like that's what makes this epic. It's not that I had never been exposed to this stuff, but I had not had like everything in one place. So this is epic. Look at this. That's your skull, just like the beetle. Yeah, just like the beetle. That's your skull right there. That's how deep they was in Kemet. That's a real person's skull right there. I just showed you. Now look at this. Now look at this. Will you look at this? Look at this. Let me see. I think this is it. Nope. That is Jabari on the milk carton. Look at this. This is your skull right here. Crazy how close it is to a beetle's body, right? That's crazy. That is insane, right? That is insane. But anyway, that's not why I was looking for this book. I just know that somewhere in here it's going to have some disgusting pictures. If you got a weak stomach, this is not the book for you. This is definitely a Halloween book if you got a weak stomach. If you got a weak stomach, don't look for the next few minutes. Yeah, don't look, because you got to see stuff like this. Right? That's just beneath the skin. Right? That's beneath the skin. Now, if you're going to be a surgeon, you really got to learn this. You got to memorize this stuff. Right? You got to memorize this stuff so you know when you're cutting into a body exactly what's what, what's where, blah, 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 blah. Look at this. Look at these pics. This is crazy. That's with the brain. It looks much more yucky in person. The camera is saving y'all from some gory details. Me too, because of some of these pages I'm not even showing y'all. Man, I'm really looking to find. It should be in here. Okay, here's the mesentery and the abdominal wall. See, it shows the connective tissue, but it's not showing what I want to show. And I know when I stop looking for, like if I stop looking for it and come back into this book in a few days, so I'm like, I'm gonna be cussing myself out like, man, it was right here this whole time. Yeah, because they got these sections of the body but they like cleaned out. Yeah, they like cleaned out so you can't really see it. I mean, this, I don't know if this will give you an idea. Wait, let me see if I can find the heart. Maybe the heart would be better. Because the heart is loaded. Yeah, the heart is definitely loaded. All right, so this is under your skin in the front. That's your lungs and pericardium, like from the front. Your heart is up underneath in there. It's up underneath, up in there. Anyway, I guess I can't find it. Maybe I could draw something. You know, my terrible drawings. All right, at this point, I'm just being rude to y'all and just enjoying myself. Yeah. Actually, you know what? You could get an idea from this, though. You can get an idea from this, right? You can get an idea from this. This picture here. Even though that's not what I'm looking for, but you can get an idea. Let me show you what I'm saying. Right? Because your body's not empty, right? You have connective tissue like scaffolding, right? You got connective tissue like scaffolding. Right? And your lymphatic system, is running through this scaffolding, right? Because you have to have lymphatic vessels, right? Running to the organs and away from the organs and glands. The organs, the glands, everything in your body has to have lymphatic vessels, right? Period. Everything has to have lymphatic vessels to and from. So this is the fascia, right? This is the connective tissue. This is piezoelectric, right? When you walk, when you move your body, when you do certain exercises, right? You contract and relax, contract and relax, contract and relax this connective tissue. Every time you contract and relax this connective tissue, you produce electric signals that then directly communicate with your lymphatic system. So your lymphatic system is bigger than just your lymphatic system doesn't have a pump, so you got to move so you can move the water around. That is it's a fact, and it's a very important fact, but it is a super oversimplification, which is the reason why we have timelines, right? 1765, medical school. We have no idea what water is. In 1765, we hadn't discovered what a water molecule was yet. So if we don't even know what a water molecule is, how could we create an understanding for the lymphatic system? So science is still trying to learn things. Right? So the electric signals generated from this grid is very important for the functioning of this lymphatic system. And when you contract and relax this grid around the lymphatic system, it squeezes. So that's how you get the flow of the lymphatic system. And that lymphatic system is going to come and wash and clean and monitor the glands and the organs, right? Because if anything is over there, any sort of viral, fungal, bacterial, whatever, that gets picked up in the lymph and taken to the nearest lymph node. Once it gets to the lymph node, then, you know, your body got some more complex machinery. Your body got some more complex machinery. You know what I'm saying? It's like a high-tech police station, you know, these lymphatic nodes. It's kind of a high-plex. It's a mix between a filter, a high-tech filter, and a high-tech police station, right? Because yes, it's filtering and this kind of advanced, it's a little crazy, but then also you got a bunch of I think it's B cells and macrophages. Yeah, I think it's B cells and macrophages. I could be wrong about that, but we shouldn't be. Let's not be wrong about that. Let me look that up and see. What types of cells are in lymph nodes? Okay. So there's no, but I was forgetting some. Okay, so there's a gang in there. Yeah, it's definitely a police station. No, it's definitely a police station. They deep in there, right? So you got B cells, T cells, macrophages, dendritic cells, and plasma cells. These cells is not as dangerous, but these are killers right here. The B cells, the T cells, and the macrophages, they in there for business. They in there for business. They in there for business. Right? So you got that whole thing going on. So they're there to analyze and woo. The B cells get busy too, but they also are like scholars, right? Because somebody has to remember and somebody has to go share information and teach. So that way your body creates a memory, right? Or the scholar has to go pull out a book from the body's library just in case the body's familiar with the fungus, the bacteria, the virus, or whatever the case may be. So if the body's familiar, the scholars got to look it up. But if the body's not familiar, the scholar has to take notes, write that book, and add it to the body's library, right? But yeah, so it's important that we contract and relax this connective tissue. On top of contracting and relaxing this connective tissue, allows us to get more exercise on our smooth muscle, right? Your smooth muscle is going to be, your lymphatic system has smooth muscle. Your circulatory system has smooth muscle, but also your organs, right? Your glands, smooth muscle. Right. So when you're watching that video, what applies to regenerating, healing, and, that also applies somewhat loosely, but it also applies to how you want to keep your glands and organs in good health, right? And working, right? So you don't want to, Here's what you don't want to do, right? And obviously, most of y'all in the chat, y'all, y'all been around long enough that this doesn't really apply to y'all. But y'all may have somebody in y'all life that y'all are talking to, advising, coaching, trying to help through a situation. And one of the most important things is you got to tell them to put a little bit of blue magic and maybe a little bitters into their tea and then sweeten it up a little bit. Just kidding. One of the most important things you got to tell them is pain is a healing signal, right? So obviously you don't want to hurt yourself, and you're probably trying to heal yourself, so you want to get away from pain. But when you start exercising, you're going to have some soreness and some things like that. You got to know the fine line between overworking yourself and really injuring yourself and creating soreness, right? But don't let that soreness run you away, right? Don't let the soreness run you away, or don't let the changes run you away. Or if you got to pee all the time because you start taking the bitters or the monthly detox, and you whatever it is, the changes that are coming are correction most times, right? So you don't want to run away from the correction. Yeah, you don't want to run away from the correction. Now, I don't know if you out there following the program that say humans are not designed to drink water. Or maybe you dripping honey into your, I don't know. Listen, my bad. Anyway, so I'm just saying, it's important for us to remember to be cognizant of our interior muscles. Those are the muscles that matter for longevity, right? Those are the muscles that matter for longevity. Yes, strength, hand grip strength and hand strength and all of those kind of things are a measure of your potential for longevity. But we have to remember that they're a measure and they're not exact, right? So that's where it gets confusing, because you have people who think that, oh yeah, well, strength is one of the main things that determines whether I'm going to live a long time or not. No, that's not it. It's what the strength represents, right? So typically a woman or a man that has a stronger handshake, typically she probably eats a little better. Typically she probably exercises more. Typically she's running, or she's getting in her steps. Like, the strength is a proxy for a group of assumptions. And if the group of assumptions are in place, then that can translate to longevity. But if the assumptions are not in place, it doesn't pan out, right? Because some people is injecting it to their strength. They steroid it up, or who knows what. It's crazy right now out here in these streets, right? Peptide business is growing every day, so we don't know what people are doing, right? But it may not be built on having the daily habits, right? The daily habits is the thing that's important, because you only have 24 hours in a day. You only have a certain amount of calories that you can eat. So if you don't eat this, and this, that means that your diet will be filled with this. If you spent 2-3 hours a day exercising and walking, typically that's going to shape the rest of your day. There's a lot of things that you're not going to have time to do. And sometimes those are the things that you don't really think about. Me, I think about that because I have my children, right? And I've been blessed I've been blessed to have to raise them. So there's been a lot of times over the years, now I'm kind of comfortable with like not having a social life, right? But yeah, it wasn't always, and so after a while though, I had to look back, when certain things happen to friends, loved ones, etc., and think, if I wasn't here with my babies, I might have been there. And that might have happened to me, or that might have happened in front of me, or I might have been with them. You know what I'm saying? Like, so because I'm here, I can't be there. You know what I'm saying? And so you got to think about that. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes you think you're left out of something, but that might be a blessing. 6 months later, 1 year later, 5 years later, you might find out all them people is good thing you wasn't over there. You know what I'm saying? Like, so, yeah, you know what I'm saying? Some dangerous parties I was supposed to go to. Things happened at those parties where I was like, whoo, man, thank God I wasn't at those parties. Right? So just saying. Same thing works with other things, because everything that we deal with is a definite finite space. When you put positive, healthy things into that space, it limits the room for negative things to also get into the space, because the space is the space, period. If you're only having 2,500 calories a day, if you've already had X amount of fiber and blah, 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 you don't even have that much room for foolishness, right? So I'm just saying that's a principle that applies in a lot of different spaces. You know what I'm saying? I spend so much time studying. Like Sonetta asked me earlier, I was on Sonetta's page, and he was like, how is it even possible that you could write so many books that's in such a small amount of time if those books is not, like high quality? And I was like, well, typically, you know what I'm saying? Because you can look it up. The average amount of time it takes for somebody to write a book nowadays. And most people that write books, the thing about people that write books is they have a family and they have a 9-to-5 somewhere. So that's the biggest thing that you got to remember with people that write books. When you look up how long it takes a person to write a book, they have a 9-to-5. So the average person that's very serious about their book puts about 10 hours a week. You know what I'm saying? Most people that you hear say they writing a book, they putting about 2 to 4 hours a week into writing the book. Those are the people that say they writing the book forever and the book never comes out, because they usually never finish the book. But the people that are serious, they put about 10 hours a week into writing their book. Sometimes I put, more than 100 hours a week into writing. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes I put more than 100 hours. Yeah. 80, 90, 100 hours is, par for the course sometime. But that's because that is my 9-to-5. You know what I'm saying? And I have the children help me to do it. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, it's a whole different thing. You know what I'm saying? They might spend 40 hours, traditionally 40 hours in a month. You know what I'm saying? I might spend 40 hours in 3 or 4 days. Like the time I put in 4 days is what they would do in 4 weeks. You know what I'm saying? And it's not like I have a different set of hours. We all have 24 hours, but it's just how you use the hours. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is it. You know what I'm saying? This is what I do. So it's balls to the wall, 120% effort. Right. So, but in that space, I don't have time for a lot of other stuff. You know what I'm saying? Stuff that I miss, you know what I'm saying? Miss out on, you know what I'm saying? And a lot of time, you know what I'm saying? A lot of times it'd be like, whew. So parties, this thing, that thing. And, you know, the thing was, look back, intelligent design, because I probably partied enough for 10 people when it was party time. So I don't feel like I missed anything because we went crazy. We went crazy. I was at all those places when they talk about legendary clubs, the tunnel, speed, boo boo, I lived in those places. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. So I definitely did enough partying for 10 people. So I just didn't know at the time that I was getting it out the way. You know what I'm saying? Because later on I would be doing this. This, what I do now, I could never have imagined that this is what I would be doing. Neither could anybody that knew me 25, 30 years ago. Like, nobody would imagine this was what I was doing. 30 years ago, yeah, nobody would imagine this. So that's another reason why I have patience for people who seem absolutely ignorant and belligerent. Because there's a time in my life that I would have been that person. I would have been that person like, nah, what are you talking about, bro? That don't even make no sense. But I had people that was patient with me and just kept pouring into me. You know what I'm saying? Even when it was spilling on the floor, they kept pouring. And at some point, you know, it kicked in. You know what I'm saying? At some point it kicked in. You know what I'm saying? So I know that sometimes you just have to be. Sometimes you just gotta work. Right? All right. All right. So yeah, we're gonna dig into this.
This is why you have to go to Amazon and get the book, Rich Abs, Poor Abs, now.